All right, so we've got this big stack of articles about indoor emergency cooking,
Yeah.
specifically when the power's out.
Right.
Looks like you're prepping for just about anything. What got you thinking about this topic? What's the biggest question you're hoping we answer today?
It's definitely something to be thinking about.
Yeah.
You know, all these sources are highlighting
Right.
how power outages are becoming more and more common these days. It's
Right.
not just about major natural disasters.
Yeah.
It could be severe weather infrastructure issues. I mean,
yeah.
anything really. Being able to cook safely indoors
Yeah.
without relying on your, electricity or gas,
Right.
that's a crucial preparedness skill.
Okay. So not just like doomsday prepping, but everyday resilience.
Exactly.
I like it. But with all these different cooking methods,
Yeah.
I'm a little overwhelmed already. Where do we even begin?
You're right. There is a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
But let's start with the most important thing, safety. A lot of these sources really stress the danger of carbon monoxide poisoning when you're cooking indoors with these alternative methods.
Carbon monoxide.
Yeah.
Scary stuff. Honestly, it's one of those things I know I should know more about,
Yeah.
but I haven't really dug into what are the real risks here.
Well, carbon monoxide is colorless and odorless,
Right.
so it's hard to detect.
Yeah.
It's produced by the incomplete burning of fuels,
Okay.
like gas, wood, charcoal, even propane.
Mhm.
And if you're using these indoors without proper ventilation,
Right.
the CIO can build up to dangerous levels and cause poisoning.
Okay.
The symptoms can be subtle at first, headache, dizziness, nausea, but then it can quickly escalate.
Wow.
Confusion, loss of consciousness, even death.
Okay, that's way more serious than I realized.
Yeah,
So having working carbon monoxide detectors is obviously essential,
absolutely.
but how do you make sure you're ventilating properly
Right,
when
yeah.
you're cooking inside?
That's a great question, and it really depends on the cooking method you are using.
Oh.
Some options, like canned heat or alcohol stoves, produce very little carbon monoxide, so you might just need to crack a window.
Okay.
But for things like propane stoves,
Well.
which are usually meant for outdoor use,
Yeah.
you absolutely cannot use them indoors unless they're specifically designed for it.
Okay.
And even then, you need a way to vent those fumes directly outside.
Got it. So ventilation is key,
Yes,
and different methods have different requirements.
exactly.
Now, the articles mentioned a bunch of these indoor safe cooking options.
Mm-hmm.
We've got butane stoves, canned heat, alcohol stoves,
Right.
even candles.
Yeah, the candle thing might seem surprising,
Yeah.
but with enough tea lights, you can actually create enough heat to bake.
Really?
It's not the most efficient,
Yeah.
but it's surprisingly effective in a pinch.
Wow.
And, candles are something most people already have around the house.
Right. I'm picturing like a whole cake baked with tea lights.
Ah,
That's wild.
it's pretty cool.
Okay, but let's be realistic.
Mm-hmm.
How do you actually choose the right method for you?
Yeah.
I mean, there are so many options.
Well, it depends on what you are trying to cook.
Okay.
How much space you have, your budget, your comfort level with different fuels.
Yeah.
Butane stoves are generally a good all-around option.
Okay.
They're portable, relatively powerful, easy to use.
Mm-hmm.
The canisters can get expensive, though,
Yeah.
and they don't last forever.
So not the most economical long-term solution.
Right.
What about canned heat? That seems pretty simple.
Canned heat is super affordable,
Okay.
and it burns for a long time, which makes it great for simmering or warming things up. It's not the most powerful, though.
Right.
So you wouldn't use it for, like, stir frying.
All right. So canned heat for slow and steady cooking.
Exactly.
And what about alcohol stoves?
Yeah.
Those seem pretty popular in the prepping community.
Alcohol stoves are great because they burn very cleanly.
Got-
Almost no carbon monoxide. They're also lightweight and compact, which makes them good for like backpacking
Yeah.
or bug out bags.
Right.
The downside is that you need to use denatured alcohol,
Okay.
which can be harder to find
Yeah.
than other fuels.
Okay. So we've got butane for power and portability,
Mm-hmm.
canned heat for affordability and long burn times,
Yep.
and alcohol for clean burning and compactness,
Right.
each with its own pros and cons.
Right.
What haven't we covered yet?
Well, there are fireplaces,
Right.
which can be really versatile if you have one and you know how to use it safely. And then there are some outdoor cooking options that
Yeah.
people sometimes adapt for indoor use,
Right.
but only with extreme caution.
Hold on. Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Okay.
We've already got a lot to consider with these indoor safe options.
Right.
Before we jump to those outdoor methods, let's talk more about fireplaces.
Okay.
What makes them unique for emergency cooking?
Well,
Mm-hmm.
Fireplaces offer a lot of flexibility, especially if you're already familiar with using one for heat.
Right.
You can cook directly over the flames with like a grate, or you can use cast iron cookware for more controlled cooking.
Okay.
And plus, if you're already using your fireplace for warmth, you're killing 2 birds with 1 stone.
Yeah, efficiency is key in an emergency.
Absolutely.
But I imagine cooking over a fireplace can be a little more challenging than using a stovetop.
Right.
Any tips for someone who's new to this?
Absolutely. It's a good idea to practice.
Okay.
Cooking simple meals over your fireplace before an emergency hits.
Okay.
Get comfortable controlling the heat,
Right.
using different cooking techniques.
Yeah.
And invest in some heavy-duty cast iron cookware.
Okay.
It distributes heat evenly and can withstand those high temperatures.
Good advice. So fireplaces offer some unique advantages.
Yeah.
But definitely come with a learning curve.
Definitely.
Now, before we completely rule out those outdoor cooking options, let's talk about them briefly.
All right.
I know you mentioned propane stoves. What's the deal with those?
Propane stoves are fantastic for outdoor cooking.
Okay.
They're powerful, relatively easy to use, but they can be extremely dangerous indoors if they're not specifically designed for indoor use.
Okay.
The risk of carbon monoxide poisoning is just too high.
Got it.
Yeah.
So unless you have a special indoor propane stove with proper ventilation, it's a no-go.
Exactly.
What about other outdoor options? What about wood stoves?
Wood stoves are fantastic for heat and ambiance.
Right.
And you can certainly cook on them.
Okay.
But they require a permanent installation and regular maintenance, including cleaning the chimney.
Yeah.
They're not something you can just set up in an emergency.
Right.
Plus, you need a safe place to store firewood, which takes up space.
Okay, so wood stoves are more of a long-term preparedness investment.
Yeah.
Not a quick solution for a power outage. We also have articles here about solar ovens and thermal cookers.
Okay.
Are those viable indoor options?
Solar ovens are amazing when you have sunshine.
Right.
But obviously they won't work at night or on cloudy days.
Of course.
And while you can sometimes use them indoors by placing them near a sunny window, they're generally more efficient outdoors.
Makes sense. What about thermal cookers, those hay box things?
Thermal cookers are incredibly energy efficient and perfect for emergency situations.
Right.
They work by trapping heat, allowing food to continue cooking, even after it's been removed from the heat source.
Wow.
You can essentially start cooking something on a regular stovetop, then transfer it to the thermal cooker to finish cooking without using any additional energy.
Wow. That's pretty amazing. So it's like a slow cooker without needing electricity.
Exactly.
I'm definitely intrigued by those. All right, we've covered a lot of ground here with cooking methods, but let's get real. What about the food?
Right.
What should we actually be stocking up on for emergency cooking?
That's where things get really interesting. One source goes into great detail about building a long-term pantry for emergencies. Focusing on staples that are shelf-stable, nutritious, and versatile. Think grains like rice, pasta, oats, and even dried beans.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
They're all pretty easy to store.
Yeah.
And can be the base for lots of different meals.
Exactly.
But won't I get tired of eating just rice and beans?
Well, that's why it's important to think about flavor and variety. Stock up on spices, herbs, bouillon cubes, even things like dried fruits and nuts to add flavor and texture to your meals. You can even get creative with things like vinegar and hot sauce.
Good point. It's not just about survival. It's about making food that's actually enjoyable to eat.
Exactly.
Even in a difficult situation.
Yeah.
What about protein? I imagine canned tuna and chicken would be good options.
Canned goods are definitely a staple for any emergency pantry. They're shelf-stable, convenient, and come in a wide variety.
And what about dried beans?
Yeah.
We talked about those earlier for cooking. But are they good for long-term storage?
Dried beans are fantastic. They're super affordable, packed with protein and fiber, and can last for years if stored properly.
Wow.
One of the articles even had a tip from a reader about grinding dried beans into flour.
Wait, bean flour, what's the benefit of that?
Grinding beans into flour makes them cook much faster, which saves fuel in an emergency cooking situation. It's also a great way to add protein and fiber to baked goods.
Wow, that's brilliant. I never would have thought of that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's amazing how much resourcefulness and creativity comes out in these emergency preparedness communities.
Absolutely. It's inspiring to see how people are sharing tips and tricks. to help each other thrive in challenging situations.
Speaking of thriving, you mentioned MREs earlier.
Right.
Those ready-to-eat meals.
Yeah.
Are those a good option for long-term food storage?
MREs are convenient for short-term emergencies,
Okay.
but they're not the most nutritious or palatable option for the long haul.
Right.
They're also quite expensive compared to stocking up on basic pantry staples.
Okay, so MREs for convenience.
Yep.
But not for long-term sustainability.
Right.
Got it. Is there anything else we should be considering?
Well, when it comes to food choices for emergency preparedness.
Yeah. So we've talked about cooking methods and pantry staples.
Right.
But what about, like, other essentials?
Yeah.
What else is crucial for a well-rounded emergency food plan?
Well, water is absolutely vital.
Right. Water, of course.
You want to aim to have at least a gallon per person per day.
Okay.
For drinking and sanitation.
Right.
You can store water in large containers or invest in a water filtration system.
Okay, good point.
Yeah.
It's easy to forget about water in the midst of all this talk about cooking.
Right.
What about things like comfort foods or special dietary needs?
Right.
Those are things that might make a big difference
Absolutely.
in a stressful situation.
That's a really good point. Don't underestimate the psychological boost that comfort foods can provide.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have dietary restrictions or allergies,
Right.
Factor those into your planning too.
Okay.
And don't forget about pets.
Oh, yeah, pets.
Okay.
What about those tips from readers that we mentioned earlier?
Right.
I remember one about using a car dashboard
Yeah.
as a solar oven.
Yeah.
How does that even work?
Apparently, if you park your car in direct sunlight,
Okay.
the dashboard can get hot enough to cook food.
Really?
It's not the most efficient method,
Right.
but it's a clever hack for a sunny day.
Yeah.
You just need to make sure the food is in a heat-safe container, and you monitor the temperature carefully.
I'm picturing a whole loaf of bread baking on a dashboard.
I know, it's pretty wild.
It's amazing what people come up with when they need to be resourceful.
Yeah.
We've covered so much ground here.
We have.
Everything from specific cooking methods to building a long-term pantry.
Right.
But what does it all boil down to?
Yeah.
What's the biggest takeaway for someone who's just starting to think about emergency preparedness?
I think the most important thing is to start small.
Okay.
And build gradually. Don't feel overwhelmed by trying to do everything at once.
Right.
Just pick one area to focus on.
Okay.
Whether it's assembling a basic emergency kit,
Right.
stocking up on a few extra pantry staples,
Yeah.
or learning a new cooking method.
That's good advice. It's easy to get paralyzed
It is.
by the sheer amount of information out there.
Yeah,
But even small steps can make a big difference.
absolutely. And remember, emergency preparedness isn't just about surviving a disaster.
Right.
It's about building resilience and self-sufficiency in everyday life.
Okay.
The skills and knowledge you gain can be applied in all sorts of situations, from camping trips to power outages to unexpected grocery shortages.
It's like investing in peace of mind
Exactly.
and a sense of control over your own well-being.
Right. And now before we wrap up,
Okay.
I'd like to leave you with one final thought.
Yeah.
We've been talking about cooking indoors during emergencies.
Right.
But what happens if you need to evacuate your home?
Ooh, good point.
It
That changes things quite a bit.
does.
Suddenly, those heavy cast iron pots and bulky butane stoves aren't so practical.
Exactly. It forces you to think about portability
Right.
and efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
Would you have a way to cook safely and efficiently
Yeah.
if you were on the move?
That's something I hadn't really considered.
Yeah.
What are some things people should be thinking about if they might need to evacuate?
A lightweight portable stove is essential.
Okay.
A small backpacking stove or even a solid fuel stove could work.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll want compact, durable cookware that can withstand rough handling.
And what about food?
Right.
Our carefully curated pantry of rice and beans
Yeah.
wouldn't be much help on the road.
You'd need to prioritize foods that are lightweight,
Okay.
calorie dense,
Mm-hmm.
and easy to prepare without a lot of fuss.
Right.
Things like energy bars, trail mix, dried fruit nuts, jerky.
Okay, so a whole different set of considerations for
Yeah.
a different scenario.
Exactly.
It seems like emergency preparedness is all about layers,
It is
having
so
different plans and supplies for different situations.
Exactly. It's about adaptability and
Right.
thinking through those what-if scenarios.
Yeah.
So as you continue building your preparedness plan,
Oh, yeah.
consider those different layers
Mhm.
and how your needs might change
Right.
depending on the situation.
Well, this deep dive has been incredibly eye-opening.
I'm glad.
I feel like I have a much better understanding
Yeah.
of the complexities of emergency cooking,
Mhm.
and I'm definitely feeling more prepared to handle a power outage
Great. Remember, it's a journey, not a destination.
Right.
Keep learning.
Yeah.
Keep experimenting and keep building your resilience.
Great advice. Thanks for taking this deep dive with me.
You're very welcome. Stay safe out there.